Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. We are back again today with a match preview. It's been a little bit of a while since you've seen a bit of content on the channel, but we're back. We're looking forward to getting back into the season, of course. Hope you guys have enjoyed the World Cup break, a bit of a break from Albion. And Championship action as a whole, really. But we're going to be getting stuck into Sunderland versus West Bromwich Albion today. We'll be talking all about the game. We've got a special guest coming on midway through the episode to give us the lowdown on Sunderland. We'll also be giving our predicted lineups for both sides and, of course, a little score prediction at the end. And, of course, my general thoughts on Albion. I'm sure it's been a little bit of a while since you've heard a bit of podcast or my voice certainly on the channel. So, yeah, feel free to drop your thoughts down below on the game. I'd love to hear them. And let's get straight into this match preview for West Bromwich Albion versus Sunderland. You're watching the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel. For match previews, match day vlogs, match reactions, and more, make sure to subscribe to the Baggies Podcast YouTube channel. So we'll start us off, as we always do, with the opposition. Let's talk Sunderland. Of course, 10th in the EFL Championship. The only side really to play so far since the World Cup break. They played Millwall just after the World Cup break. They came back slightly early. I think that was the fixture that was due to be played around the time that the Queen passed away. So they've played already, a little bit sharper than Albion, perhaps, as they played a league game. And they certainly did very well in that league game. It's 3-0 to Sunderland. They beat Millwall 3-0 last weekend with goals from Ajayi, Alex Pritchard and Ellis Sims securing the victory for the Black Cats. And I mean, yeah, that's quite interesting that they came back slightly earlier than any other Championship team along with Millwall. Is because they like to have a little more sharpness in them. They're likely to have not had to play the friendly like Albion have had to play. I think it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the game because, of course, Albion are going to have to get back to speed, I suppose. I know they've played the friendly against Elche, who are my Spanish team, which I quite enjoyed seeing that those two playing together, even though we couldn't quite watch it ourselves. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact Sunderland, having played the week before, has on the game. Maybe they'll be a bit more tired, but maybe they'll also be a little bit sharper, having come into the frame of the Championship earlier on. But they're fourth in the form table based on the past 5 matches. Of course, bear in mind they have played a game more than most of those sides in that top 5 matches because, of course, they're the only, along with Millwall, the only sides to have made their Championship return so far. But they've played 5 games, won 3, drawn 1 and lost 1 over the past 5 games, fourth in the form table, as I said. They're managed by Tony Mowbray, former West Bromwich Albion manager. We've got quite a few former managers in common with Sunderland. Let me know if you can name any more in the comment section below, but my thinking is Tony Mowbray, of course, is a former Albion manager. Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, another one. Let me know if you can name, those are just sort of from recent memory, but if you can name any more in the comment section below, let me know. But yeah, former West Bromwich Albion manager in Tony Mowbray at the helm for the Black Cats, won the Championship in 2007. 8th season. As for some stats, they're third in the league for goals per game with 1.4 goals per game. 8th in the league for goals conceded per game, which is a very good defensive record, by the way. 1.1 goals conceded per game. 7th in the league for their clean sheet record with 7. So doing pretty well, Sunderland. Obviously coming up from League One last season. Big task coming into the Championship with a real heightened expectation around them, of course, making a return to the Championship after that back-to-back relegation into League One. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Here's what I think they're going to go for in terms of a lineup. I think they're going to go for Patterson in goal, a back four of Lyndon Gooch, Luke O'Neill, Danny Bath, former Wolves man at centre-back as well, Ajayi Alese, a left-back formerly of West Ham, Corey Evans and Dan Neil in the centre-back midfield positions with Alex Pritchard, former West Bromwich Albion player. He was on loan at us from Tottenham quite some time ago in the attacking midfielder role. Jack Clark, a left midfield. Ajayi on loan from Manchester United on the right. And Ellis Sims up front. But there is somebody who's going to know much more about Sunderland than I do or than you do. Yeah, we're going to be hearing from Graham Falk from the What the Falk podcast, who gave his thoughts ahead of the game. So massive thank you to Graham for sending that in. And of course, I was on his podcast as well. So make sure you drop that a watch in the description.
Hello everyone, this is Graham Falk from the Falk Podcast, which is an independent Sunderland podcast, and I'm just here to preview the game between ourselves and yourselves, Sunderland and West Brom on Monday night for the Baggies Podcast, after Louis was lovely enough to come on my podcast and do the similar thing from your side, and he was fantastic, so I recommend you do give it a listen based on him alone, and hopefully I'm half as good on this one for you. First and foremost, I've tried 7 times to record this, and there has been Christmas carolers singing outside. I live next to a church, so it's been a stressful experience, so forgive me if I'm speaking a little bit too fast. But first and foremost, obviously Louis asked me to give a few thoughts on the game, and first and foremost thoughts on our season. It couldn't have gone any better, if I'm completely not honest with you. It's been a fantastic season for us in many ways that has probably defied expectations. I think I said at the start of the season, if we were 15th, I'd be delighted with it, because it's comfortable, it's safe, it's a level of progression from League One, and I don't think anyone, I know there's a few people outside of the club tipping us for potential playoffs of the surprise package. I don't think many Sunderland fans that I met had those expectations or even those thoughts. But the fact that we're sitting in 10th, and after that fantastic day at Wembley and the momentum that it gave us, and we were unbeaten, I think it was 17 or 18 games by the time we got promoted from League One under Alex Neil, and the momentum that was there was fantastic. And then obviously Alex Neil decided to go to Stoke, which was a stressful time, for want of a better word, and you think it's all going to fall apart. Lo and behold, it didn't. We beat Rotherham 3-0, I think, the first game after Alex Neil left, officially. And then our star striker, Ross Stewart, who scored 5 and 7, gets injured and then hasn't played since, although he might be back on Monday, hopefully, for us. So you then think, oh God, can anything else go wrong? And yes, it can. Ellis Sims got injured for 11 games, which is our only other striker. So we actually played 11 games without a centre forward. We used to play 2 number 9s, which were basically like number 8s, essentially. And we were fine. We managed to see it out, and we're 10th, and now those players are coming back, and Tony Mowbray has had enough time to implement his style. And I think ultimately, with all the issues that we've had and the fact that we have just been promoted, I just think it's been a fantastic return to life so far. But it's such a tight league, you can never settle. In terms of Tony Mowbray's start, I mean, I couldn't be much happy with Tony either, if I'm completely honest. I think it wasn't my choice, if I'm completely honest with you. I was a very big Alex Neil fan. I really was disappointed that he left, but he left, and you have to accept that. These things happen in football, and I think Tony Mowbray would have not been on my list, if I'm completely honest with you. It wouldn't even came to my attention, but he came, and there was a lot of talk about him being good for the young kids, and he had a good brand of football, and I thought, well, okay, but outside of West Brom, ironically enough, I don't think he pulled up too many trees up here in Glasgow, which is where I live, for Celtic. He didn't at Hibs either. Borough, he was maybe a bit hamstrung, but he wasn't exactly. He's not revered there for his managerial time, more as a player. But he's done brilliant. He's been all the things that you could have hoped that he was going to be. He has been. He's been fantastic for a very, very young squad. The squad that we have is, I think, the youngest in the league, or maybe joint youngest with Swansea, and he's been fantastic for so many of the young boys. Jack Clark, Amad Diallo, Ajayi, who's a new sort of centre-back, sort of left wing-back sometimes, of when you play in 3. He's come in from West Ham. He's been brilliant, but the list is endless. We've got a very young squad, and he's managed to look after them almost like I want to say a father figure, but he's more like granddad. We'll say granddad figure, but there's a long way to go. I think he's only 4 or 5 months into his tenure, but Tony's been great. The fans like him. He's a very likeable fella, and I think he's turning a very talented team into a very good, solid team that has an idea of how they want to play. And we've played some really attractive football. I'm hoping that some people have seen some of our goals this season, especially the one against Reading that was scored by Jack Clark, have kind of gone viral because they've been that good, and that makes me really proud, because to be honest, a lot of the time Sunderland over the past couple of years have been someone to laugh at, and that hurts, as it would do with any club. And this season we've been a team that I think people are looking at and go, no, Sunderland are doing all right, and Sunderland play nice football, and they're doing quite well. Could they make a push for the playoffs? All that kind of thing. So ultimately that a lot of the praise has got to go to Tony for that and the recruitment team. I've been critical of the recruitment in times, but Sunderland fans listening to this will be shocked. I can't complain this season, but I'll say it very quietly because things can change, can't they? From a West Brom perspective of players to look out for, you might be surprised by this, but I touched on before that I live in Glasgow, and Tom Rogic is a player that has always impressed me when he's played for Celtic. He's loved up here by the Celtic fans, and for good reason. He's got a real low centre of gravity when he plays. He's tall, he's strong, he's got a lot of physical attributes alongside a lot of technical attributes, and I don't know how much he's really played for West Brom because I know he came in late, so if he's coming in late, then potentially he'll be wanting to build up match fitness, and maybe he hasn't shown you his best yet, but you've got a really good player on your hands there, and someone that would have been delighted to turn up with Sunderland, and on a free transfer I just think he's an absolute steal. He's a great player, and I think if he fancies it on Monday, he's a game changer. He's a match winner for me. Our star player, well, I'm a big Ross Stewart fan. I love him, but he's been injured for 4 months. He might be back on Monday. I think he'll start from the bench if he is, and we'll gradually bring him back in. But you can't look any further than Amad Diallo. I mean, he came in from Manchester United and they paid 37 million for him, which speaks volumes about the talent and potential he has. But again, going back to Glasgow up here, he didn't have the best of times with Rangers. He didn't have the worst, but he didn't really have an opportunity to show why Man United paid that much money for him as they went on to play in the Europa League. And Man United have paid a lot of money for a lot of rubbish in the recent past, so you never know if you're going to get a £40 million player or if they've just truly bought potential and you're going to be getting a real rough diamond at best. And in many ways he is raw, but he's starting to hone that ability and that capability of running with the ball, going both sides, again low centre of gravity, the ability to score goals. And the goal he scored against Birmingham the other week was just outstanding. I assume you would have watched that with it being against Birmingham and hopefully enjoyed it as well. But it was a beauty, an absolutely outstanding goal, and he's definitely the player in form. Outside of Diallo, Alex Pritchard's been a great signing for us. He came as a player that hadn't worked out at Norwich. He hadn't worked out Huddersfield. I think Huddersfield paid £12 million for him, and he kind of was with them as they dropped out the Premier League and got a lot of injuries. And Huddersfield fans hate him, absolutely hate him, and of course he scored against them, which silenced him quite a bit. But away from all that, he's been excellent for us, and he was one of those players that when we were in League One, he said if we get promoted, he's going to be someone that is going to really add to our team. And if we don't get promoted, could we potentially lose him because he got back to fitness and things like that? And thankfully he's still with us. He had a bit of a rocky period, if I'm honest, in the middle of the season, but since the strikers come back and he's got someone to play off, he's been outstanding. Again, he scored at the weekend, and he's starting to get back on the score sheet, which is probably the one criticism we can give him of recent times. He's starting to fix that. So Amad Diallo and Pritch are definitely the two to watch. In terms of predictions, I'm not going to veer away from what I said, and I did a preview with Louis, as I said earlier in the day on my earlier in the week, on my podcast, and I said 1-1, and I'm not going to veer from that. England playing against France tonight, and the kind of joy of the World Cup, and our run in that has not made me feel more positive. It's just made me be a bit more realistic, if anything, when it comes to my club team. I would take a 1-1 if I'm completely honest. I think your position is false. If you end up in 21st come the end of the season, and this is on record, you can have my house. I don't think West Brom are going to go down this season. You've got a very good manager. And I think the manager that you've got is going to maybe not get you towards the playoffs. I think you've had too bad of a start to the season. And looking at your season, I'm really not surprised that it didn't go very well at the start with Steve Bruce. Because once Steve Bruce gets in a rut, and he's proven this at almost every club he's been at, he cannot get out of it. He just gets stuck in these cycles. Like with Sunderland, a lot of the situation with Sunderland was he said he was pushed out because he was a Geordie, which was never the case. He actually was probably backed more than anything because of the fact that his roots were maybe slightly different and not red and white. He had great backing of a good chairman in Niall Quinn at the start, and we brought in and broke our transfer record numerous times. The sad fact is he went on these streaks and runs where he couldn't get out of it, and it just appeared that'd be the same at West Brom, and I'd be shocked if he went back into management after this. I think his time is done. But Corberan's a great boss. I think he'll do a really good job for you. I think the way you've been playing recently, you've been keeping a lot more clean sheets. I think you've won the last 3. I mean, winning 3 out of your last 3, not conceding a goal is literally the polar opposite to exactly what you had under Steve Bruce at the start of the season. And obviously, without even looking, I know that's going to be your best run of the season. So I think with that all taken into account, I'd be really surprised if we wiped you aside. I don't think that's going to be the case, but we're in good form, you're in good form, so I guess that kind of points to a draw. So I'm going to say 1-1, but for those people coming up, do enjoy yourself. I know it's a long old trek on a Monday night and probably quite difficult to do near Christmas, so if you're coming up, you've got my full respect, and enjoy yourself. Enjoy, obviously, coming to Sunderland, and hopefully, from our perspective, you enjoy your time, but you leave a little bit disappointed with the result. But yeah, that's everything for me. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much to Graham for getting in touch and getting involved in the preview show for this week. And of course, as I said, I was on his podcast not too long ago, so make sure you check out my thoughts on Albion from a Sunderland perspective. If you make sure to go and check the link in the description of the podcast, and make sure you go and check out his socials as well. And thank you very much, Graham. But yeah, let's move on to West Bromwich Albion, 21st in the EFL Championship, despite a fantastic record heading into the World Cup with 3 wins on the bounce, a game in hand on most teams in the league though. After I don't think we've quite played that game that was postponed from the Queen's passing. I think that was back in September. So yeah, a game in hand on most teams in the league, 21st in the Championship, 7th in the form table since Carlos Corberán's takeover, with 5 games played. Over the past 5 games, we've won 3 and lost 2. Carlos Corberán, of course, only has managed 4 of those with 3 wins and just the 1 loss in his first game against Sheffield United. Those wins have come against Stoke City, a 2-0 victory there in the last game before the World Cup break. QPR 1-0 and Blackpool 1-0 just before the World Cup break. But will that pre-World Cup form continue? Has that break been a little bit of a hindrance to Albion, who headed into that World Cup break in fine fettle? To be fair, we looked pretty decent heading into it, and we didn't really want it to come, if we're honest. Obviously, love the World Cup, really enjoyed it so far, but we didn't really want that World Cup to come from an Albion perspective. We quite wanted to keep it. Keep it going with this form that we were in. 3 clean sheets on the bounce as well. Big problem for Albion before Carlos Corberán's takeover was conceding those early goals under Steve Bruce, but that seems to have been eradicated, touch wood, heading into this game. And I mean, yeah, Carlos Corberán, of course, coming in at the end of October, he took the squad away to Spain during the World Cup break, a great chance to sort of implement those tactical ideas. Looking really good defensively before the break, but I think attacking wise, we saw some big improvements against Stoke, but I'd still like to see a little bit more from the side. Of course, those the goals so far that we scored under Corberán, 3 of them coming from set pieces, and 1 of them coming from that beautiful bicycle kick from Brandon Thomas Asante. Now, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I feel like that's not really a sustainable way to score your goals. Of course, maybe we'll see a bit more after that training camp and after he's had a lot more time to work with the players. I think, it's kind of like a mini pre-season, if I'm honest, to be able to get the players out, go to a different destination mid-season. And of course, with the new manager, it will feel like a little bit of a pre-season for him, to be fair. But we saw those big attacking improvements versus Stoke. But I'd like to see, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I thought that Albion played pretty well in that game against Stoke, but could have scored quite a few more actually. If I'm whinging about maybe not creating the chances that we wanted, but I think that we worked quite hard in creating some of those chances, and especially defensively looked very solid and very unbothered by the Stoke attacks. But yeah, let's talk a predicted lineup for Albion. Of course, a few possible absences. I've heard some rumours of a doubt over Carl Bartley and a doubt over Grady Dean Garner, so I haven't included those, despite the fact Carl Bartley, of course, signing or getting an extension to his contract earlier in the week. I'm not sure that he's fit enough to play, judging from some of the rumours I've heard, and same with Grady Dean Garner. But here's what I'll go for if neither of those are available. Alex Palmer in goal, Daniel Furlong at right back, Shemi Ajayi returning from injury at centre back with Dara O'Shea, Connor Townsend at left back with Jason Malumbi and Okaya Kujlu, the 2 deeper midfielders, with John Swift just ahead, Matt Phillips on the left, Jed Wallace on the right, and Brandon Thomas Asante, who played absolutely superbly in the game against Stoke City, scoring that brilliant bicycle kick, which undoubtedly should be in the mix for goal of the season in the Championship this year. A great goal from him. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing what he can offer again in this one. Daryl Dike, of course, returning just before the break with a 4-minute little cameo against Stoke City. It'll be interesting to see whether he's played throughout this game, whether he's needed, whether they're going to call him, sort of manage his minutes. But be very interesting to see what they do with him. We hope that he stays fit and he can bring us sort of that goal scoring return that we were promised almost a year ago now, if we think about it, at the end of January, at the start of January when he was brought in and got up to speed, and then of course got that first injury, then got that second injury at the start of this season. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this. Looking forward to seeing Dike back. Looking forward to seeing Ajayi back, because of course he was probably, it's no coincidence for me that Semi Ajayi, as soon as he got injured, that the defence started to show some cracks. So yeah, interesting to see how both of those get on when they return to the side. A score prediction from me, I'm going to go 1-0 Albion. I think we're looking very solid defensively. Not quite offering enough in attack as of yet to really score, but you only really need one goal a game if you're going to defend the way that Albion have been defending. So looking forward to this. It'd be very interesting to see how we get on at the Stadium of Light at 8 o'clock on Monday evening. But thank you so much for watching this match preview. Thank you very much for Graham from the What the Falk podcast for sending in his thoughts ahead of the game. Make sure you comment your score predictions below. Subscribe for more content like this. We're back and better than ever. Looking forward to getting as much content to you as possible over the next few weeks. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.